What should you do to get out of the intermediate level plateau, or as we call the intermediate purgatory? And how to get into the advanced level? Well, let's find out. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of ZoukNerds. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the intermediate level plateau, this place where so many people are confused and wanting to know what to do, how to get out of it, and what's next. And we're going to give you some tips as well for those of you who want to move into the advanced level and what to look forward to when you're there. So let's go. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of ZoukNerds. My name is Alisson Sanji, and today we have our amazing co-host, Gui Prada.
Hello, my people. Very excited for the episode today. It's going to be good.
Today, we're going to be talking about the intermediate dancer purgatory. It's something that I'm sure it can relate to a lot of people, whether you're a dancer, an instructor, or you've been in the community for a long time. This is something that we all deal with. Most recently, as we're starting a new cycle of classes, we've been talking to our students, and this raised a lot of questions and a lot of topics that we would like to share with you today. So Guy, why don't you break down for us what's going on?
Yeah, so here at District Zouk, we have our more advanced courses, and I would say advanced with some air quotes because it's more of our experienced courses. In order to get in, you need to get assessed or you need to do an audition. And in that process, we do have those students that have been in the community for such a long time. However, they keep getting stuck in the assessment or in the audition in order to get into these more experienced groups. And recently, they started sharing a little bit more of that frustration of not being able to get into these more advanced courses. And then they gave the name of Intermediate Purgatory. It was something that it was funny because I saw two people calling the same name. I don't know if they talked with each other, but they came with the same terminology. And I loved the name of the Intermediate Purgatory because it's also something that we had an opportunity to talk about when I was in Asia a couple weeks ago. And it's something that in my own journey was fun it's fun now when I look back, but it's fun now when I look back. But it was interesting to recognize that point in my own journey. And in trying to talk to the students and to the people that I've talked to and give them advice, remember of my own experience, how it was. What did I do when I reached this place? The Intermediate Purgatory is basically translated to a plateau. And I think most of us have felt a plateau, that we plateaued at some point. In the more specific idea of the Intermediate Purgatory is more of someone that started to dance, knows the basics, knows the fundamentals, is learning the more complex techniques. However, it's stuck in a place where either they don't feel or cannot execute all the things with comfort and fluidity, or they don't seem to have an opportunity to enroll in the more advanced courses, and it's very hard for them to understand why it's not happening. What is it that is happening? One of the things that we hear here and other places too is, but I have done everything. I have done everything that was offered. There's nothing more for me to do. And then when we ask them to repeat something or do the thing again, it's like, but I have already done this thing. I learned it already. So there is this thing that goes on. So that is the idea. That's why we decided to talk about the Intermediate Purgatory, this stage in the dancer's life, because I think there is a lot to unpack there. So many things involved. Nah.
Yeah, so when we're talking about it, we are referring to that moment where students feel stuck because they don't get the opportunity. But at the same time, they don't get the opportunity because they're still stuck in the things that they need to work on. So it's this dilemma, conundrum that they are in where they want to advance and they want to learn the next techniques or the movements that they haven't yet and they see other people doing. But as teachers and parents that we are in a position to tell them, hey, these are the things that are missing before you move on. But it's hard when you are in that position because, as Guy mentioned, to them, they don't know what they don't know. So then they say, well, I've done it. I've done this course. I've learned this movement. But in the end of the day, what we're looking for here is quality of movement, quality of connection, quality of execution. So whether it's in the school that we teach here regularly or in anywhere that we go, what we're talking about, I think, applies globally. Well, when you are in our basics level, I wouldn't call necessarily the beginners, right? Maybe the beginners would be like below the basics. But like there's an intro level, and then there's a level that you work in your basics, like the timing, the connection, the close hold movements, open hold movements. And then there is the phase of the fundamentals where you learn more combinations and more variations of the movements. And that could be maybe a lower intermediate if we think about it. And then the upper intermediate is when you start working on different axes. So things like head movements or cambres or things that are more technically challenging and connection challenging, mechanically challenging, that could also hurt and could also cause some bad experiences on the dance floor. And that's where we kind of like put a higher gate. If we think about from the first gate to the second gate to the third gate to the fourth gate, it kind of like gets a little higher and a little higher, because in the end of the day, we do want a lot of people in the community and we want to welcome and make the most amount of people feel included in the community. But as this is a dance that involves a lot of different body positions that could hurt somebody, we also need to be very careful. If I was a fighting coach, a martial arts coach, I would let people play around and, do a couple of low impact exercises on the floor. But I wouldn't tell my students that they can just, go and swing legs and arms as much as they could, as much as they wanted on the floor, because that would be irresponsible from a teacher's perspective. So this is the conundrum that we're talking about today. How and why we as teachers try to educate our students in that way, and how and why they feel that way. In your experience, Guy, did you experience that moment where you felt like you wanted and you could do more, but there was something, whether it was your teachers or the community, that wasn't allowing you to progress?
It's a very good question. It's a very good question, because as I was trying to go back into my own experience to talk to people here, I realized that my purgatory was a little bit different. I realized that I was in that place of plateauing in my overall social dance experience. The way it felt like going to the social, it was changing over time. And in one point, it stayed I was not extracting the same joy that I extracted in the beginning. In the terms of learning and taking classes, because we were constantly in class, because there was something going on forever, it didn't feel like that. And because we had our particular trainings, we had very specific trainings, and we would train complex stuff, not being ready to train complex stuff, but we would still train complex stuff in these particular classes. However, there were so many people there to help us and to train with us afterwards and beforehand that then I was able to catch up. But I did have situations in the beginning where I was in class. And the instructor would literally come in, touch my shoulder, and guide me out of the class because I was not ready to be in that class. And they would guide me out of the class and put me in a new class. That happens. That happened a couple of times. And that was the way that they had to verify if you're ready for it or not. They would watch you in class. While the class was happening, they would take you out or keep you in. So we don't do that. We do beforehand. We do an assessment. And like you were saying, Alison, the gatekeeping of the classes, the gatekeeping of the courses is, again, a conundrum, because you want to, at the same time, offer opportunity for people to learn. Maybe if they are not precisely in the level for that class, you still want to offer them the opportunity while taking care of those who are ready to take that class already and are in class. So you have to make this calculation, this balancing of things when offering opportunities to people, and also realizing that one of the greatest factors for me, and something that I realized in my own experience, is our attitude towards that. So we give opportunities to people who might not be precisely at the level we want them to be for that particular class, but they are with such a good attitude, such a good intention about it, and that is very much that's displayed in a very practical way, in the sense that they are doing this other class to complement this thing. They are training outside. They are coming to the social. So we see that. We see that the person is putting some time. And with that, we then give them the opportunity to join the course because we see that there is something more that they are doing. And that is something in my experience that was true, because we were doing not only the class, there was all this other stuff that we were doing around it in order to be able to catch up and get there. So I think I'm from a generation in Rio, in my school, that had the opportunity to learn in different ways. We had the regular class, we had the trainings, the particular trainings, we had the labs, and we also had our own trainings. So the horizontal aspect of learning was very much present, which I think is something more difficult these days to find people to train. It's funny because when I was in Taiwan, I was talking to some of our friends there, and they were showing me how organized their training sessions are. They have a group in Line. For guys that don't know, Line is the Asian WhatsApp, that they use it for everything. So they have their group in Line. They send the videos of the thing they want to train, what time they're going to train, and then they send videos of each other. So there's all this practice culture that really helps, really helps. And then when you go there, you see the evolution is so incredible. So I think not relying on just one source of learning, especially at this point that you think that you are plateauing, is really important. Diversifying where you take information from, including those who are learning with you horizontally, is so powerful and so important, and might be one of the ways to take people out of the purgatory.
One thing that I do recommend students, that is a practice that is pretty much free, I would say, is to ask your teacher how you're doing and what are the things that they are noticing that you should be working on to continue progressing onto the next levels. So that can happen in class, before class, after class, at the practicas, or if you can afford it, in private lessons. This is something that oftentimes when we have to give that feedback to the students, they'll come to us and say, well, I didn't know I was missing out on these things. And as teachers, we have to mention to them and say, well, in class, I gave you this feedback, I gave you this feedback, I gave you this feedback. And you're like, well, but then I thought that once you gave me the feedback, I was good. I fixed it and I was good. But to be honest, we are doing that. And then as a student, you have to do the next part, which is to come back to us and say, hey, I've been working on this. Can we test it? Can we make sure that it's on track? And what should I be doing next? Looking out for information is one of the ways that you can keep yourself on check and to make sure that when it comes to the higher gate, you will be okay to go past that gate instead of just showing up and taking the classes and then going along with the flow. When we're talking about who are the ones who continuously move, usually those are the ones who are hungry and looking for more than just showing up. You can go to the school and just show up to the class and then leave and not think about it, not practice anything, not analyze, not study, and then next week show up to the class again. If that's good for you, that's good. But that is not how majority of the education in a dance community goes. You need to be doing extra. 1 hour, 2 hours of classes is not enough. The amount of classes that you take, let's say 3 hours per week, I would say you should be practicing outside of class at least the same amount, 3 hours per week. If you take 1 hour of classes, practice 1 hour outside of the class. If you take 6 hours of classes, practice 6 hours outside of class. Because you need time to digest, to repeat, to understand, to question, and then bring those questions to your teacher next week. What we often see is that the students barely remember what they did last week. That is a big, big, big issue. And it's something that in rare communities around the world, they don't have that. Mm-hmm. What do I mean by that? I feel like in some places, you come back next week and not everybody, but I would say majority of the group, they're ready for the next thing. But then the majority of communities that we come back, that next week, we have to do at the very least, 50% of what we did last week because they probably didn't think about it or practice for the last 7 days. And that's hard, because we want, as teachers, we want you to learn everything as efficiently and as fast as possible. But we are only one person in this equation. There's so much more. So much more.
No, yeah, it's exactly. I was just agreeing because it's the review portion of it. It's so important, which reminded me of a conversation I was having yesterday with some friends here, where I think we talked about this already, the idea of progression. What is to progress? And I think for those who get stuck in the purgatory, what I've been noticing in conversations is the idea of novelty. I'm not learning anything new. That's kind of the idea. I want to learn new things. And then when we say, I think you could do this thing again, they're like, oh, but I already done this. There's nothing new in it. So I think that's something that is really, really powerful to realize, and something that I've been realizing in these conversations, that the seek for novelty, to learn something new, and as the sign of progress, it's something that can very easily get you stuck. Because if you don't review, if you don't get these foundational techniques down, I think we're having an epiphany. If we don't get the foundational techniques down, it's really hard to continue learning something new consistently every single time. So the review is actually part of the novelty. In order for you to be able to do more things, more new things, you need to be even more solid in the things that you know, or in the things that you think you know. So with our experience here, noticing now more than ever that changing the perspective of what it means to progress, I think it might be now more important than ever because I'm doing Chinese. And if I go 3 days without reviewing, without looking at my flashcards, I forget so quickly because
Me
the
too.
language is far from being in my head yet. And with the dance, it's the same thing. The movement is not yet in the body. It's not the download is not complete. So you need more time with it. You need to review it more. So convincing people of that, I think it's gonna be tricky. It's gonna be a journey. Nah. I don't know how long have you been trying to convince people of that, but I'm realizing now that it's so difficult because it's a mindset thing. You know, it's a mindset thing that revolves around patience. Lots of patience. And I said this so many times. For me, it was hard to perceive the purgatory, the intermediate purgatory, in the sense of acquiring skill, because I knew that those who were the advanced or the mega dancers, they were at least 6 years doing it in a very consistent and continuous way, you know? So
Absolutely.
that gave me patience. But those were other times.
Very different times indeed. Back then, the attention span was much longer. And nowadays, the attention span is much shorter. And the enticement of new things are just constantly there on social media, on how many couples and how many new content you get to see every day. You know, back in the day, we would see something new every couple of months. Nowadays, we see something new every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. So it's really different times. And something that I wanted to talk about is the idea that when you are a social dancer and you are trying to progress, to me, the way that I did in my journey was to really always put the responsibility on me. So if somebody is telling me something, I'm going to look at it and think, okay, so thanks for the feedback. I need to do more of this. I need to do more of that. If I am getting the feedback and I'm getting this assessment from somebody that I admire, somebody that I'm keen to learn from, and somebody that I trust, I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to take that feedback and I'm going to take the responsibility. And I think that's something that a lot of people need to hear, including myself in a lot of moments in my life, is that it's your responsibility to make that change. Like I said, providing that you are with somebody that you look up to and somebody that you trust their opinion and their judgment, give full trust and trust the process. If you need second opinion, if you need somebody else to look at it, that's good too. I highly encourage that. But just like when you go to maybe a doctor and they tell you, oh, we can't do anything about it, or you need to do this and this and this and this in order for this to be fixed. If you know that doctor knows what they're doing and know what they're talking about, you're going to trust them. But if you are not 100% sure, or the things that they're telling you don't really align with your experience, with how you feel in your body, you know your body best, you know your experience best, then you get a second or a third opinion. And that can come from other peers in the community, whether they're teachers or social dancers. You can ask them. And that communication, that feedback loop is something that is really, really helpful. For those of you who are listening and watching this that don't have somebody to reach out to in your community directly because of where you are or because you travel a lot, whatever the situation is, you can always reach out to people online and maybe record a video of yourself dancing alone or dancing with another partner, and ask for maybe a private lesson online where they can review your material and give you like real constructive feedback on the things that are not quite there yet, and open your eyes and open your vision to see those small little things that create that quality of movement, quality of connection, quality of execution. And something else that I think it's important to talk about is the feeling that people coming from other dance styles have. Because that's another thing that we deal with in the community. When people have already danced any other dance style for a certain number of years, and then they want to get into Brazilian Zouk, as we're talking today, and they believe that there is no benefit for them to actually go from the very beginning and take their time. It's hard. It's hard, to say the least, to actually get somebody to understand that. But something that I do is to actually dance with them and make their body feel the difference. Okay, do you feel how you're doing this like this? Okay, this is how your body is doing it. This is the accent that you have trained in your body. But we actually need this. And then once they feel in their body, there's like a shift of like, oh, wow. Okay, yeah, I never felt that before. This is completely different from what I thought it should feel like. Because visually, a lot of the times, we just go like, yeah, I got it. You know, he and I, we were preparing for this and we were discussing the topic. And then I mentioned that a lot of us have the problem that sometimes we're watching a TV series like a Master Chef, and we're criticizing the chef on international TV. So then we're like couch chefs. So we feel that because we see them making a mistake or we see them doing something correctly, we think that it's kind of like, of course. But then I know for a fact that if I tried to do it, I would probably burn it or completely destroy it, you know. But that mentality of like seeing and thinking that, yeah, you know, if you ask me to do that, of course I can do it. And then making my body feel that I actually cannot do it until I learn and train, that really shifts the perception of how much I don't know.
Yeah. And a question came up like, how do you define that difference between being intermediate and being advanced? When does someone become advanced in your point of view?
Right. Well, strap on, let's buckle up, because this is, of course, this is something that we've spoken about a lot as teachers in a hotel room, in a reception, or in between classes. What is an advanced dancer? To me, an advanced dancer can be an advanced dancer in one topic, but not the other. So if I'm talking about an overall advanced dancer, that is rare. And I would even go as far as saying that it's rare, even on a professional level, to be advanced at everything. But let's say more on a social context, I would say it's the ability and the skill to execute everything below their level with ease and with grace and with lightness and with quality of muscle memory. So it's not that they can do advanced spins, but it's just that the preparation that they do is so yummy and it's so beautiful that even if they do the simplest spins, it's just better than if somebody who does these crazy spins that look like they're struggling. You know, I did a lot of competition, a lot of shows, a lot of performances. And the one thing that we always strived was to make the hardest things look as simple as walking. Like as a judge, when I'm watching a dancer, either social dance or a show, or as a teacher, when I'm watching or dancing with somebody, all that I'm looking for to score them or assess them and give them a level is on that quality of movement. Can you do all your basics, all of your fundamentals, all of your intermediate techniques with ease? And very high adaptability in a way that if I ask you to do something, you'll never give me the very common excuse of like, oh, but my partner, oh, but the floor, oh, but the music, oh, but if there is a but there, then you need to go back and work on it. Because that but makes me believe that you're missing certain foundational blocks. You're not going to get a real trained, advanced dancer telling you those kind of things. If you ask them, hey, can you do this movement, this movement, this movement? They may not be able to do exactly what you asked, but they're going to get to the end somehow adapting with what was happening in the moment, and they're going to end it, and they might even throw something new and cool there just to get a little laugh, but they will get to it. They will execute it. And yeah, I think that's kind of like a long summary of what an advanced dancer is. It's not one thing.
Yeah. That last point that you mentioned, the but thing, my grandmother says, everything is the same, it just changes address. I think I told people this already here in the podcast. Most people that consider themselves to be in this plateau, this purgatory or the intermediate, they maybe all of them have a but. So in the end of the day, I think it's a mindset thing where if you attribute your difficulty to do something to an external factor, the floor, the partner, the music, you are at a place in your mindset that I think holds you back quite a lot, because you take the responsibility away from you and you put the responsibility somewhere else. And it's exactly what you were saying, Alison. I think it's exactly that. The advanced dancer, to my eyes as well, is someone who get the basics of our dance, of Brazilian Zouk or whatever other dance that they know, and can play with it, can break it apart, put it together again, can adapt. And for me, there is one more element that the advanced dancer can dance with everyone, has the ability to communicate the dance or communicate with anyone they dance with. There are, of course, the exceptions, because there are people sometimes that you cannot find a way to find attunement or synchronicity with that person, and that's normal in any form of communication, any form of language. However, in the majority of situations, you can adapt, you can understand, you can communicate. I think what you said last, the but, I think in the end, it is the main thing that keeps people in the purgatory. I think that's the main thing, this mindset idea that there is something else preventing them to move on. Is the fact that I cannot do the advanced class. When I dance in the social, I can dance well with some people, but with some other people I can't. So all of these things are really similar. Everybody says something really similar to that. So it makes me think we might need to consider a different way, or bringing it more consistently, this idea about what it means to be truly mastery, what it means to master the dance, what it means to be really good at this dance. Because in our assessments, we try to make it more objective. So what do we think someone that is auditioning for this level should know at this point? And then we just change direction in the viradinha, for example. Or we switch directions in the soltinho. Something in the basics, something in the fundamentals. And then we watch people struggle there. And the people that are struggling in that situation, then they say, oh, but I never saw this. I've never seen this before. And you're like, yeah, we agree that this is new. However, we have been doing this for 15 minutes in front of the mirror. Now, you can't stop to the sides, look a little bit and go and try again and try again. And if you really cannot do it again, even if you watch and try it for 15 minutes, then it kicks in the thing that you said before, Addison. Think about going to the instructor and said, I had a hard time doing this thing. Can you show it to me again? Some people do have this initiative, and I love it when they come and they ask, I couldn't figure that out. Can you tell me how to do it? And that
Yep.
shows us there is an attitude, there is a positive attitude to the process of learning. And that's something that we take into consideration too. So anyway, a lot of scrambly thoughts, but I think that that's that's the idea. Né?
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying before, taking responsibility. Taking responsibility is key for your own progression. Guess what? We're teachers, we're people, we've been on your seat. I have to even backtrack on that one. We are still on that seat constantly. The amount of people training and coming up with new things on a daily basis, if we snooze for like 3 months, we're out. That's it. Like we are in a different seat, but we're still in a hot seat forever. Unless I didn't care and I just wanted to make money and not really be innovating and recycling and learning. But that's not how we operate. So we're constantly learning, constantly seeking information. And it's interesting because both of us have a similar feedback from our students whenever we spend some time traveling. We come back and we do a warm-up or we do a class. And the people who take classes with us for months and months, sometimes years, or even the people that co-teach with us, they'll come to us and say, oh my God, what was all that new stuff that you were doing in the warm-up? Or what was that new thing, the new way that you're explaining the same thing that we used to explain different before? Oh my God, that's so amazing. That's like mind-blowing. It made so much sense. That is because we're constantly researching, asking questions, taking classes with other teachers, and really questioning how can we do this better? And as a student, I think that's the mentality that you need to have if you want to progress to that next level where whatever advanced means to you. Advanced in DC is different from advanced in New York, and it's different from advanced in LA. And I'm just talking about big cities here, but if we break it down to smaller cities, it becomes even more different. But I think a practical way that we can look at it is to look at different aspects of the dance. So let's say you have a scorecard. If you want to be very practical, which is how my brain works, you have a scorecard of your dance, right? And you go to your teacher, either before or after class, during class, or in a private lesson, and go like, hey, based on 6 months of dancing, how would you score my timing? And then you get a score. How would you score my weight transfer and footwork? And you get that score. How would you score my posture, my body movement, my mechanics? And how would you score my turns, my elasticity, my connection? And have like a grade system for all of those fundamental elements of the dance. So then you can know like what are the gaps and why when you go into a musicality workshop, you really can't do it. Even though you can do head movements, toiles and spins and counterbalances and all the crazy things. Well, your musicality is suffering because your score on timing is next to zero. The amount of people that we see and we teach that comes to us asking for help that really struggle to progress and they are in this plateau, most of the times they have issues with timing, posture, connection, because they just didn't pay attention to that. They're just looking for the next shiny thing, the next shiny move. And then they hit this plateau of like, oh, I'm not improving. I'm not enjoying my social dancing. I go to classes and I feel like I'm not learning anything. And sometimes it's a cold, very, very cold shower to really accept all of this. But then we go and we change one small thing in their timing. And then we ask them, okay, now can you do the other move? That one that you're struggling with. And then bang, it works. It was one of those small little things that as we're learning, we may not know or not want to pay attention to. I remember, wow, I don't know how this came into my mind right now, but I remember when I was learning English back in 2007, when I moved to Australia. When I landed in Australia, I knew zero, nothing. Luckily, I had people to help me in the first few months. But I remember about 1 year after I was in Australia, for some reason, my speaking was getting faster and faster and faster and faster. And now, any of you who knows somebody who has English or any other language as a second language, you will probably think about somebody right now that you know that they know English, but you cannot understand them because they speak so fast. So here's how I can explain what happened. My brain got to a point that it was comfortable enough to speak English fast. But my enunciation, my pronunciation, my tones, and my cadence of speech, all of those things, they were not understandable. And those are the small little things that while I was learning English for the first year, I was just like in Australia, surviving and dealing with things. I didn't pay attention to those. I was just like, okay, I can say more words now. I can ask for more things now. I can understand more things now. And it wasn't until one of my managers, I used to work in a hotel, told me this, and a couple of my students told me this. They came to me and said, Alison, please, can you speak a little slower? Like, I don't want to upset you, Alison. Like, your English is getting much better, like every week. But I think you're speaking a little too fast for the level of pronunciation that you have. So slow down. Be careful with how your mouth moves and how your tongue moves, because it's getting harder and harder to understand you when you talk to you and when you're teaching classes. And look, I'm sorry. I don't want to make you upset. I really just want you to get better. And that to me was like a moment of a dance teacher telling a student the same thing. And I don't know, that memory just came into my mind. And I think it's just very relatable to how we deal with in dance. We learn things so fast and we think we're doing okay because it's kind of like it's working, but it takes somebody to really tell you, and somebody that you trust to really tell you, hey, slow down, go back to the small little things, because you will feel a difference if you do that.
Yeah. No, I'm happy that you talked about language, because I really love talking about the language analogy, learning a language to learning dance, learning partner dance as a language. Because in the language learning system, I think we have A1 and A2, where A1 is the complete basic, you know nothing about the language, and you go to A2, and then you have B1, B2, C1, C2. And I think by the time that you have B2, you can communicate properly, you can talk to people, you can have your way with the language. And C1 and C2 being the truly more advanced levels, I think, and then is more in the sense of grammar, vocabulary, and all this stuff. But then you have native language speaker, which is the person that can understand the language, even when somebody is speaking with a very heavy accent. And I go through this here in the US every day, where I go sometimes to a place where somebody has a very heavy accent. I cannot understand, but there's an English speaker, a native, right next to me, understanding everything that person is saying. And I think when I think about the advanced dancer in Brazilian Zouk or in partner dancing, I think about someone close to being a native that can understand all the different ways that somebody is dancing, can adapt to that way of dancing, and can communicate with anyone, beginner, advanced, intermediate, professional. So in the end of the day, when you were saying all these things, Addison, I think the lesson that I want to remind myself of and communicate that to those who are listening or those who are watching is to try and see the review, try and see the doing something again, going over something again, not as repeating something that you already know with a connotation of something less than learning something new. I think that's an important shift that can truly help you advance, whatever that means for you, but can truly help you get out of this understanding of this place of being stuck, being the purgatory. In the end of the day, I think that's the common thread that I see in those who find themselves in this position. It's hard for them to see excitement or to be excited in reviewing. And I think when they bring a new energy to that, it might change everything. Because like you were saying, we come back from our trips or we come back from a training, and let's say that we are explaining the simple turn differently. Bro, how many times have we seen the simple turn? How many times have we taught? Have we learned? Have we seen it? Have we understood it and heard? So many times. But there is one time, there was during one review that somebody said something in a way that clicked so much. And then we thought, in our position as teachers now, oh, this can help us students so much. And this can help me too. So that's pretty much it, I think, in the end of the day. It's a mindset shift that will bring a skill shift, or maybe that will unlock the door to indeed be able to learn the new stuff. Because like you were saying, I also don't consider the advanced person me the person who can execute complex looking movements. I totally don't think that. Because the complex looking movements, they can be, for example, learned in a choreography. You can learn the execution of the movements. And I think the advanced dancer is able to execute the movements while feeling that execution and while being able to adapt that execution to whoever they are dancing with. And most importantly, understand when not to execute. When not to execute. Because I see so much, almost every single time. And here, guys, I'm sorry for the expression of frustration coming out. It's about to come out, some frustration. But I see so much people in the social leading things that are clearly not ready to be led in that person. And I'm saying about leaders in relation to followers, and followers in relation to leaders where they themselves go into these things. So the advanced dancers, in the end of the day, has this wisdom in realizing how much they need to do, at what time. They are feeling every step of the way, and they can wisely decide not to do something. So that's something that I think is overlooked sometimes because it only occurred to me now as I was speaking it. So it's something that can go through without us realizing that. So when I am thinking about everybody that I've talked to in my lifespan as a teacher, while they were expressing why they thought that they were in the purgatory, there was some aspect of being able to do something that they can't do with certain people while they're dancing. Like, oh, I cannot do this thing with these certain people, but I can do with this other one. With these people here, it's amazing. With these other people here, is not. What's happening? Why cannot? Because I was invited to teach private lesson one time because they saw me dancing in the social and they were curious about what was I doing to be able to dance with that person that they have such a hard time with. What was it that I was doing to be able to dance with that person? So that was the topic of the private, and I loved it. It was so fun to be able to explain this thing. So the same thing on the other side, on the side of the follower. I was invited for a private once that the follower said, I saw you leading my friend in things that I know how to do. But then when you dance with me, you didn't lead me into those same things. Why? Like same. So I got one from the leader's perspective, and I got to talk about the follower's perspective one time. It was one time for each, and it was so enlightening. So
Oh yeah,
I think that's it, man. I think that's in
I've
the
heard
day.
this so many times.
Yeah,
I've heard this
yeah.
so many times. But I think as a conclusion, and maybe taking a risk here of people not liking what I'm about to say, the attitude of an advanced dancer that I can recognize miles away is humbleness. To me, almost all people that actually say from their mouth that they're an advanced dancer, I don't consider them. Because the people who are true advanced dancers, most of the times they don't consider themselves because they're working so hard, so hard, so hard. And this is from the experience that I have. Okay. I have met beautiful dancers that I consider them advanced. And you're like, oh no. Like I'm just an intermediate, like I'm still trying to get this quality or this little thing here, this little thing here, this little thing here. And they can mention, I don't know, 10 things that are really soft skills that they are working on. Whereas the people who are like, oh, like they don't have advanced workshops or those classes are intermediate, like I need advanced content because I've been dancing for 3 years or for 5 years. Those are the people that I don't consider them advanced because I can see what it's missing. What is missing is not the movements that you're looking for, is the quality of the soft skills and the small things they're missing out. Therefore, they don't appreciate any and every class. Like a real fully fledged advanced dancer will go to a beginner's workshop and they're going to have light bulb moments. They will go to a beginner's class that is teaching basic step. And in that class, they're going to be able to take things into their dance just from that basic step class. To me, that's the true advanced dancer, the advanced dancer that needs a complex, auditioned, select workshop to feel like they are an advanced dancer. That to me is somebody who needs sugar. You need a dessert to feel good. You don't feel good eating fruits. You don't feel good eating salads. So sorry if you don't like it. Maybe one day we're going to agree on it. And if we never agree on it, that's cool too.
It's okay.
The world is big enough for the both of us to survive.
Yeah. Because I think there's a certain look to it, there's a certain look when you look at someone dancing and you see no effort and you see fluidity and you see lightness. The chance of that person there really got these features that we have been talking about is big, and in the end of the day, I think it's a mix of technical skill. I mean, the advanced, who is the advanced for those who might wonder what that is? I think in the end,
And how to get out of the purgatory.
How to get out of the purgatory. Yeah. I think how to get out of the purgatory is that thing. Grab the experience as your own, make it your own, and see what are the things that you can do to get to this place that you think you can be or that you want to be, more specifically, The other thing is observe your own mindset and see what are the things that you are telling yourself that are limiting your seeing your progress. What are these elements that are preventing you from getting to this place that you want to be? And see if any of these elements involve an external factor that you are blaming, Because sometimes it can be true, like you were saying, Addison, in the beginning. They don't get the chance to get into the advanced classes, therefore they don't get to train, and then it gets to that loop. So sometimes that's totally true. The thing is understanding why you're not getting into these classes if you have the opportunity to have them in your community. In the congresses that have leveled classes, for example, and do auditions for these classes, it's also an opportunity for you to, see what could be happening. So this mindset idea and assessing by yourself, bringing to your own experience, what are the things that when you are dancing, you have a hard time communicating with the person that you are dancing. It can be a particular move, it can be a particular sequence of things. So bring it to your own assessment, to your own sense of what feels good. I was recommending to some people recently to watch themselves dancing, like to record themselves dancing. For some people, they dread doing that. But I think it's so useful, it's so powerful. When I was teaching for the first year or so that I was teaching, I was filming almost all the dances that I was having while I was training, because there was something that I could not feel, but I could see was happening. And after I saw that was happening, then I could feel. It was really interesting. I had a shoulder that would go up whenever I would lead bonus, and I couldn't feel this shoulder going up. But after seeing it several times, I could feel the shoulder going up, so I could stop the shoulder from going up. That's a very practical example that I have of myself. And in the end of the day, the advanced dancer is a mix of technical skill and mindset skill. Your ability to look at something that you have already seen and see what is new inside of the thing that you have already seen. And the communication skill on the dance floor, analyzing or thinking or experiencing how easy or how not easy it is for you to dance, for example, with a beginner, with a complete beginner, for example. What are the things that you are noticing in that experience and working? Because I think, Alison, that our understanding of the advanced dancer is multidisciplinary. It has different ramifications. So someone would need to look into each one of them individually to see where they are. But that's it. I think that's the conclusion that we get to.
Yes. Well, we dove quite deep into this topic, and I also believe that we gave you some very practical tools to utilize for those of you who are in this phase or to avoid getting into this phase. And hopefully that was very useful to you guys. So once again, thank you so much for being here and being part of this conversation in ZoukNerds. And we'll see you on the next episode, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Beijos, beijos. Abraços. Ciao.
Thank you, everyone. Ciao, ciao.